Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial, and today we are going to do a Mr. Bump cake. So for this we have already cooked and buttercreamed up our 8-inch sponge. You will also need some blue fondant, some white fondant, a black pen or some black fondant if you prefer. So here we've got a kilo of blue fondant and I have coloured it up blue. And for that I used a bit of, this one's a green mint one, but it's the Sugar Fair that I always use. And I used a little bit of baby blue and a little bit of ice blue just to get that darker, richer colour for our Mr. Bump. So I'm going to take my corn flour, I'm just going to spread it around. Wipe my hands. I'm not quite sure if I just said a kilo, but this is a kilo of icing. And we're just going to roll like we normally do for our cakes. And I'm just going to turn it and try and collect up some of that corn flour as we go. Because this is a round cake, I want to try and keep our round shape as well. You'll find it easier if you keep the shape to ice the cake. So we've got our icing or fondant, whichever you prefer to call, all rolled out, and we've got our cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my rolling pin. I'm just going to move this over to here just slightly. So we've got our cake, like I said, this is an 8-inch, and we've pre-buttercreamed it up. We're just going to take our fondant and we're just going to place it over the top. So we've got our icing or fondant, whichever you prefer to call, all rolled out, and we've got our cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my rolling pin. I'm just going to move this over to here just slightly. So we've got our cake, like I said, this is an 8-inch, and we've pre-buttercreamed it up. We're just going to take our fondant and we're just going to place it over the top. And then we're just going to, like we do with all our cakes, we're just going to smooth down our icing so we get a nice covered cake, and we're going to cover it with some bandages as well. So just take your time, going around, pulling out if needs be, and just working your fondant around your cake. As you can see, I'm just using my hands just to rub in. Now I'm going to take my smoother and we're just going to smooth it all along. And now I'm going to take my marzipan knife and we're just going to trim off the excess that we don't need. And again, if you're not confident, you could take quite a, you could cut it like that and then trim it down if you need to be. Okay, so there's our cake all covered. Okay, so our next step for our Mr. Bump cake is to do Mr. Bump's bandages. And for this I have just a ball of white fondant. We're just going to roll out. So I'm going to take some of my corn flour. I'm just going to wipe my hands. And we're just going to take our rolling pin and we're just going to roll our white fondant out. And I'm going to do this long ways because I need it to fit over the cake. And then we're just going to roll out until we have the right size that we need. Or just to try and elongate it as much as we can, which I think should be okay now. So I'm just going to turn it so it's at a more cuttable angle. Okay, so our next step for our Mr. Bump cake is to do Mr. Bump's bandages. And for this I have just a ball of white fondant. We're just going to roll out. So I'm going to take some of my corn flour. I'm just going to wipe my hands. And we're just going to take our rolling pin and we're just going to roll our white fondant out. And I'm going to do this long ways because I need it to fit over the cake. And then we're just going to roll out until we have the right size that we need. Or just to try and elongate it as much as we can, which I think should be okay now. So I'm just going to turn it so it's at a more cuttable angle. So we're just going to trim up the ends of our fondant and we're just going to put them over to one side. Then I'm just going to trim up just to get a nicer line. Like so. And then I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm just going to mark out where I want the bandage, or the size of the bandage. I've done 1.5 centimetres width, but it is a little bit of trial and error. And until sometimes you get it onto the cake, you don't know how it's going to look. Okay, so there's one of our bandages. I'm just going to do the same again. And obviously you could put that on top and use that as a template as well. And this one might be a little bit thick and thin, but some of it will cover anyway. And we're going to do the same for our third line. And then I'm just going to put my ruler and my piece of fondant to one side. And now we're going to get our cake, and I'm going to work from the top down. And then we can stick them into place once we're happy with the way they look. decided now that we're going to overlap them, so I've put the middle one on, and then I'm just going to lightly pick up the top one, and I'm just going to pop it over the top, and then with this one we're just going to pick up the top two together, and I'm just going to push that underneath like so, just so that they look like they're overlapping a bit more and giving it a bit more character and definition. So I'm just going to sort out my sides a little bit like so, and then we're going to trim up straight onto the boards. So as you can see, if I just turn around, we've just trimmed up the side of our cake, and we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Now we're going to get our water, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift up all three pieces at once on the sides, and then I'm just going to pop down. I'm going to do a little bit underneath there. I'm going to do a bit there. And I'm just going to do this all along. Please remember, not a lot of water. You don't want it all slipping and sliding. If you do put too much water on, it does slip and it makes the fondant quite wet. So I'm just going to do exactly the same on this side, and then I'm just going to position it in. So now I'm just going to take my fondant off and just put a little bit there, and we're just going to tuck that over as well. So there we have the bottom of our Mr. Bump cake. Let's just move these out of the way, and we're going to do exactly the same on the top. So we're going to take our first bit of fondant and we're going to lay it down like so. And then we're going to take our next bit of fondant and we're going to lay that over the top. And then we're going to take our last bit of fondant like we did before. I'm just going to move that one there, I think. And then we're just going to place this just over the top like so. And then we're just going to stick all down and cut, just making sure these are all in position, which they are. So now we're just going to trim off. We're doing exactly the same as we did at the bottom. I'm just going to pull them to one side. I'm going to get my paintbrush. As you can see, I have a little selection of paintbrushes in my jar, and I'm just going to run the paintbrush down to stick these in, and then I'm just going to run this bit along the side here. Like so. I'm just going to run the paintbrush here, and then I'm just going to run it along there like that. I'm just going to lift this a little bit up a bit, and then along the sides. here as well. And then I'm just going to run a bit just along here, just so we can get our Mr. Bump bandages on. I'm just going to just very gently just push this all together. So there we have our bandages all ready and done. So there we have our Mr. Bump, bandages all done. The next thing we're going to concentrate on is doing the black trim that goes over the bandages. So I'm in the middle of doing the black trim for our Mr. Bump cake, and all I'm doing is using my smoother just to roll as thin as I can manage, and then we're going to put it onto our bandages so we can give our bandages just that little more depth. I think at the moment that might be fine. I'm just going to trim this little bit away. So I'm just going to pop that there, and then I'm going to take our black, and very carefully and very, I'm just going to just see what it looks like before we stick it, because we are going to have to stick it as we go. So bear with me a minute while I go very quiet, because I am concentrating, and as some of you know, I tend to stop talking when I concentrate. I think that looks okay. So we're going to go ahead and I'll get my little magic pot of water. It's not really magic. And then I'm just going to put the water just around the edge of the bandage. And then we're just going to take our black and we're just going to press on. Like so. And I'm just going to press it down just to give it that little bit of extra stick. And take my craft knife and we're just going to trim off. So now we can do the next bit, and I know that that looks fine now, so I'm going to go ahead and just stick the water on straight away. And I'm going to do exactly the same. Now we will need to roll out some more black fondant. Because sometimes when you're rolling the fondant so thin, you need to do it in little sections. But you can get the gist of how it would look. So we're just going to go out and roll out some more black fondant. I'm going to take my water, we're just running it gently across the top. Going to trim up that edge, and then I'm just going to put this on, and it's a bit difficult. Like so. And it just gives our Mr. Bump that little bit more definition and character. And then unfortunately we have to roll out some more black. So I'm going to roll out more black fondant, and I'm going to do the bandage of the black that we done on the top. I'm going to do on the bottom, and I'll get back to you once it's all done. So as you can see, we have our blacks onto our bandages. The next part of this now we're going to do is the face. So again, I'm going to take a small piece of fondant and we're going to do it exactly the same as we did our bandage. Just going to roll it until we get it to the length that we want. I do believe there is a tool out now that you can put in and spiral it out, but this does the job just as good. And we won't need a lot, so I think that will be enough. I'm just going to cut a little bit off the extra. So I'm going to take, while we're here as well, I'm just going to put that to one side. I'm going to take a ball of fondant and I'm just going to cut it in half. And I'm just going to cut it in half again, and this will be for our eyes. And then what we're going to do, to get them a little bit more rounded, roll it on your mat or on your work surface, and I'm just going to push them down. And then I'm going to do the same. Now they're not on the cake, so they might have to come off and we might have to recut them to make them smaller. But for now we'll just go with the flow and see how they look. I'm just going to try and get them into that kind of round shape. So there's our eyes. So I'm just going to pop them to one side. We are now going to take our cake and I'll show you how to put them up, the face and the eyes on. So we're going to take our bit for our mouth and we're just going to put it up. And we're not going to stick anything yet. We're just going to make sure that everything looks okay. We're going to take a little piece of our fondant here. In fact, we'll use the smaller bit. And I'm just going to cut two little square, like two little bits, like so. And we're just going to place them onto our cake, like so. And then we're going to get our eyes and we're just going to place our eyes on. And then again, and this time we're just going to take a longer piece and we're just going to pop them on like that. And then we're just going to shape these to make the eyebrows, like so. And then when you're happy with the way that it looks, you can then stick it all onto your cake. So now we're happy, or you guys are happy with the way that your face is, we're going to take our water and we're just going to stick it all down. I'm just going to pop it down like so. And there is our, I'll lift it up a little bit, is our Mr. Bump cake. You can leave it like that, or you can put some feet and hands on. We're going to go and put some feet and hands on just to give it that little bit more character. So I've just taken the blue fondant that we used to cover our Mr. Bump cake, and I just smashed my hand off the side. So much apologies for that. So I'm going to take a bit of the fondant. I'm just going to knead it so we can get it workable. And I'm just going to roll it into kind of like a sausage shape. And then, hopefully, I want to say hopefully, but you know what I mean. I think we need to make it a little bit more smaller. And I'm just trying to rub it to give it that defined and so you can get the idea of the leg and foot. Again, I've just got some blue fondant and we are going to roll it into a sausage shape. I'm going to bend one part down. Try and flatten it out. In fact, if I take this one off, I can get the right height and the right measurement, like so. So we have our 2 feet. And we are now just going to put these onto our cake, like so. So they go on like so. The next step is our hands, which we will do now. So again, blue fondant. Just going to cut them in. This is one hand that we made, and this is how we made it. So just take a ball of fondant, and then I just squashed it down, trying to get the exact shape. And then we just made 3 inserts into our cake, and then I'm just going to take my knife and I'm properly going to cut them now. And then I just rounded them off a bit. Like so. Just to get the kind of like same shape. I'm just going to mould that in a little bit. So we've got our hands, and we're just going to pop them onto our cake. So we've put the hands not in line with each other, we've put one kind of like lower down. But as you can see, this is our finished Mr. Bump cake. So here is our finished Mr. Bump cake. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. And please also remember to click on the bell as well. You can also find us at Facebook and Instagram at Cake Decorating with Danielle. And we also have a new website, which is cakedecoratingwithdanielle.com.